All right. What do you need help with?
Hey, wait,
And don't put passing this class.
1 second. I still need to get onto it.
Oh. Tuesday is annual exam day, right? A week from today. We will start, I'm assuming we don't want to start anytime before 9. Would we rather start at 10? I mean, I'm guessing it's about 4 hours, maybe a little bit more when we get into the decision-making scenarios, but that will not be, I mean, once you're done and you're just waiting for your decision-making scenario, you don't have to sit there.
Question. Are we? Yeah. No, never mind. It's stupid.
And I think I would rather go earlier so we're done earlier.
You know, then we're not sitting there starving in the middle of the test because we're missing a lunch.
Yeah, and then they said that we could just quick hop down there, test in like 2 minutes, and then go right back up.
Yeah. I mean, you'll be moving back and forth and all that sort of stuff anyway, so.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I just rather would get it done earlier in the day. But
okay.
like, yeah, so 9 or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just not getting done at like 5 o'clock.
Annual exam next week.
Yeah, that's fine with me. The only reason I even brought that up is like the possibility of you using it as an excuse to not go to practice or something if that's what you wanted to do. But
I'm not going in anyway the rest of the day, so.
You think you're going to be burnt out?
That's my one excuse to not be there one day, so.
Fair enough. So looking at the list here, I'm glad to see that a lot of you guys are starting to think about life after Augie, because that is important and is always a part of the important aspect. We will start formalized BOC stuff here shortly with the new BOC prep class. That's Tuesday and Thursday at 11 with Jamie. That will be in 241, Elman 241, just as you guys are thinking about different stuff with that. So you'll get some more information on that, start registering for it. To be honest with you guys, like I'm actually not at all worried about that portion at this point. Like I think you guys are a lot more prepared than you think. Suffering from a little confidence issues from the fact that I've been beating you guys over the head with some crazy stuff, but you guys know more than you think. A lot of this sort of stuff is the advanced growth stuff that I've been trying to push for a while. As far as post-grad life, resumes, cover letters, all that sort of stuff, I mean, reach out to myself, probably for a lot of that aspect. That set some times up and let's chat through it, work through it together, what works for you guys with that. Most of that stuff's going to be very individualized for that. The one thing I will say on that in general is for cover letters, I am a strong believer in individual cover letters for each job. So we can talk about that in general, but you're basically going to be writing a different cover letter for each job with that. It's not as universal. So looking at the daily note stuff, I've been given some feedback on there, some just generic feedback with everybody. Like, for the most part, right, this daily note is going to be very, very much specific to what your clinical practice is based on and what you're doing. So looking at those, I gave some feedback on different aspects, but the daily note is going to be basically a result of how often you're seeing the patient and how often you're writing them, right? The longer they are in between stuff, the more information and the more it becomes like the other assignments. I don't see what it says for the material. Is this the test one? Oh, I'm just keep kicking me in the nads. Thank you, somebody, for going higher than a 1. I don't, to be honest, I don't know if it's worth it going back and looking at that and all that, or just moving on. My initial inclination is, with the annual exam being on Tuesday, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on specific stuff. Let's move on to the more general stuff for that. So I'm just going to move on from
Is that stuff on the BOC, James? Any of that?
Not anywhere near the level that I'm testing you guys at. Right? I mean, like, it's most of that stuff is tested in other ways. And there's just not, I mean, and when I say other ways, like, it might ask a question about, you know, why you might use the McMurray's test or the Thales test opposed to the Apley compression test, right? Something like that. It might ask about the definitions of, you know, specificity or some of that sort of stuff. And there might be like a total of 5 questions on all of, you know, those sorts of definitions. So, I'll just kind of skip this for the questions on that. And so I wanted to at least get this session in before we finished, because this is now the application of all of these principles. A lot of times you've been asking about, like, when this might be used, when it might be particularly applicable, different aspects. And this is when we start to focus on that. And I'm just going to give a couple of examples of how some of the things that we were learning can be used, and we'll work through one specifically in these, like, pre-test, post-test probability stuff. But think each one of these issues and thoughts that we went through have a lesson like this in there. And so you can get to that when you're looking to become more advanced as a clinician. So we got some questions just in this. A lot of this stuff isn't as important since we're not taking the test on it, but just have some fun with me on this and we'll kind of go. So meta-analysis is what type of information? Unfiltered or filtered? Right, and it is filtered. That's just the definition. Anytime you have a study of additional studies, systematic reviews, critically appraised topics, meta-analyses, all that, that's considered this filtered information. Not that that's particularly important with that, but you can see here the different levels of evidence. This is more OCEBM with that. You can see the filtered stuff towards the top there, lower stuff with that. But the steps for a critical appraisal of systematic review, evaluating which of the following questions. So this is now evaluating the strength of a systematic review. What should you be looking at while evaluating the strength of a systematic review? Right. And it is all of the above, right? With the different aspects that, oops, I thought I had another slide there. All of these different questions with that, right? And that's where you now are looking at the different levels of evidence and starting to apply them with that, with the same critical aspect you do in there. So diagnostic accuracy measured if you're looking at an estimate of the ability of a diagnostic test to currently determine the proportion of patients with the disease from all the patients with a positive test. All right, and that is the positive predictive value with that. These different measures and all that, I'm going to explain, not that it's important to know specifically what each of these are. I mean, it is if you're reading these or answering the questions on them, but how it's used is what I want to focus most of our time on. So I want you to imagine in your mind that you have a patient and and they possibly tore their ACL. How sure in a percentage would you need to be before you referred them specifically for an MRI? 90, 80. Hey, gosh, you guys have high thresholds of 60, right, in there. And so that's the idea of in your mind. And this is an arbitrary number, right? This is decision with their, part of it depends on, is this today? Is this tomorrow? When did they tear their ACL? All that sort of stuff, right? Right. The longer that, you're dealing with a patient and they don't seem to be getting better, that's when you might start thinking, do that. But you don't want to refer everybody with a knee injury. And so why this is important, or why I bring this up, is because we can actually start to determine the probability of our patient having a ACL tear. So the first thing we have to do is establish a pre-test probability. And so when we're establishing a pre-test probability, what different things should we consider? Right, if you haven't figured out, I'm cheating on a bunch of these, right? These are all of the above, right? Do I have another slide here with that? Oops, no. Okay, so prevalence. Prevalence is basically the number of people in your population that have the condition at any point in time. Right, so if we look at this from the beginning, right, some of that comes from the standpoint of like sport, female, all that sort of stuff. Like volleyball players are going to have a higher, or female volleyball players are going to have a higher prevalence of ACL tears than swimmers, for example, or women's soccer players have a higher prevalence than men's soccer players. Different aspects. So if we look at that, there's a basic percentage. We then go through our subjective evaluation with that. We ask questions. We have our gut intuitions with that, and then our mechanism of injury. All of this gets into an idea now of a pretest probability. So basically what a pretest probability, so we're on the same page, is the pretest probability is before I do any special tests, right? What is my overall thought process? How convinced am I that this person has an ACL tear or whatever the condition is? Okay, from there, we can use the positive and negative likelihood ratio as well as a nomogram. This is a nomogram to determine post-test probability. And so we can look at this here, right? After performing your initial evaluation, you assess their pretest probability of having an ACL tear at 50%. So after we do our initial things, we've done our history, we know the prevalence, we think it's 50-50. All right, anybody ever been there 50-50? Right? So now we're going to do a Lockman's test, an anterior drawer test, and a pivot shift test. So we have a positive Lockman's test, a negative anterior drawer test, and a negative pivot shift test. From there, what do you think they tore their ACL? Yes or no? Just think in your mind. And what percentage would you place it at? Well, let's look, and we can actually calculate that using these positives and negative predictive values. So we have a positive Lockman's test. That means we have, and the Lockman's test has a positive likelihood ratio of 9.56. That's pretty good. So we take this using the nomogram, we're at 50%, go through, this is about 9.6 I made up there. And that goes, so after that, now we're 90% sure that they tore their ACL. However, they had a negative anterior drawer test that has a negative likelihood ratio of 0.43. So now starting at the 90, we draw through 0.43 and we get to about 75%. At 75%, we have a negative pivot shift test, right? And the higher the negative likelihood ratio, the less good it is at differentiating between negative and, or like a negative test doesn't mean as much, right? If you've done the pivot shift test on people, right, it's negative a lot, even on people that have an ACL tear. So this is showing that, right? We're at 75%. That negative test only moves it down 5%. So after this, we are 70% convinced that this person tore their ACL. Right? So now we could go back to our original thing and say, some of you guys are referring this person, some of you aren't referring this person according to the numbers. Now, the important thing to understand with this is two things. One, do I have another one? No. One, let me go all the way back here. Different tests have different predictive values. So you can see here, the pivot shift test has a very high positive likelihood ratio. If you have a positive pivot shift test, if we started at 50% and that was positive opposed to negative, and we drew that through that line, we would be way up above 90%, almost 100% convinced. But you see as a much lower negative likelihood test, right? Anterior drawer, you can see that is much or very middle of the road, if not lower on the positive likelihood ratio, right? So different tests are obviously created differently. This is the whole point of understanding that evidence-based practice stuff, so you can take things like this from the evidence and use it, right? Because if you were voting, right? If you were voting at the beginning, when I was right here on this slide to begin with, and I asked, do you think this person tore their ACL, right? And would you refer them, right? Did that answer, yes or no, match your pre-version of the percentage? Knowing that we ended up being 70% confident with that, would you have referred them based on this? And so we can get that. The second portion is that all of this evidence is only as good as your experience with it and your ability to do it. That's where some of these pre-test probabilities go into play, right? You can't eliminate that original stuff. So that's just one example, you know, there are more. I don't even want to go there. There are more examples of specifically how we can use this information and different reasons. I'll get to that in a second, right? How we can use that information clinically.
I think the test fucking sucked all the ass with no lube.
For what?
Jeremiah is saying that the test
Oh.
did us dirty and there was no lube.
This is about video lessons 15 through 16. I skipped the other one on purpose.
Oh no, I replied as soon as it was
Oh, you replied and I had already moved on. I gotcha. Okay. I don't know what any of it.
interval.
Those were just out of order. Daily visit notes, you got that sort of stuff. Most of you guys have been doing all of these already. So that's pretty much going to be the end of the class. Obviously, we didn't get through everything, which is okay. That happens. That's part of, you know, the flexibility of different things. A lot of it just has to be the craziness of the year, because even as, you know, lazy and useless as last year's class was, they still kicked the crap out of you guys on this. So that's okay. You guys are much better people than they are. I guess I should be careful about that. We have one of them coming back. I can't talk trash about them anymore, huh?
James, am I going to travel with baseball?
No.
Good. I don't want to.
Here, let's start with one. Is baseball going to travel? Right? Let's assume yes, but I'm not going to assume anything. And then go there. I mean, I would assume you would, but.
I don't think I will, to be honest.
Okay.
Because we're
If
not going
you
to.
don't, that works out too. More free time.
I know. They're going to be like, wow.
So.
Me and Jeremiah talk to you after everyone gets off.
About what?
Everything we were talking about earlier.
Sure. Just remind me to stop recording it.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that'd
you
be
can record
good.
it.
That'd be good. Let's not record it.
Because Jensen, I did remember to cut our conversation at the end out of the YouTube thing. So.
Oh, that really didn't matter, but
No, it wasn't anything in there. But I'm like, nobody's really that interested in, you know, what Jensen and I were talking about.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, yeah, that is that's the class. If you feel for whatever reason that you want to go through any of that stuff at another point in time after BOC or whatever, I'm okay with that. I'm okay if we don't, if you just want to look at specific questions, all that sort of stuff. I mean, anyway, what else can I do for you as a large group while I have you here, or while you have me here, I guess?
This is a really stupid question, but I figured I might as well ask. So the stupid Christmas party for athletic training. I
Mhm.
realized that the reason why Shelby had all the time to do like this stuff is because she wasn't, she was able, she didn't have a winter sport.
She just didn't do it. Yeah, she just
Like,
Yep.
you said that we can't get in like with level 2s and 1s and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
want to do a Zoom thing. Would it be possible to just do like a take and go meal and then do just like a little gift? Or I mean, I know it's like a month after.
do whatever you want.
I'm just asking you
Do
as
like
like
end of the year party, Meg.
Sorry, 1 second. I need to turn up my volume, I think.
I just said we could do an end of the year party. Maybe once
Just
things,
instead.
I don't know. Yeah.
Should we just do like a little gift and tell everyone to come like pick it up on their own time?
Yeah.
I vote we do an end of the year thing because I'm a little broke right now to get a gift.
No, sorry.
the-
I was meaning like
the
the athletic training.
Group.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Like last
You're
year we
not
got
too
like a
broke
mug or
to get
something.
a gift. You're too broke to get a gift. We would be buying you a gift.
Oh, you'd be buying me a gift? Shit, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
like the program like pays for it. So like in the past we've done like gift cards, mugs, that kind of stuff.
No gift cards.
Oh, okay. Well, like
only
that kind of stuff.
because technically it's payment and you can get taxed on it.
Oh, so what would be like a good gift idea for everyone then?
A free hour where they can do whatever they want.
I
What
think
a
we would only
free
benefit
day.
from that.
We all need more than just an hour.
Megan, to be honest, if nobody's busting your chops about it, just
I
Kinda
feel
forgot.
bad, but like
Megan,
I
no, don't
break
feel
my
bad. Nobody
Christmas party.
cares.
okay.
Hey, this is the reality of that sort of stuff. If somebody cares enough to complain about it, my response will be, then you organize it.
Yeah, no one has said anything, but I kind of thought about it the other day and I'm like, I'm terrible.
I don't think anyone has like time to like